Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I've got my hot foiling machine out and I'm going to use this Tropical Leaves Better Pressed plate and die set, as well as this Buffalo Plaid Better Pressed plate. And I'm going to do some double hot foiling. I have two different colors of foil here. I'm using Aura, which is the gold with holographic, and then I'm using Opal, which is a little bit transparent. I'm also using some masking magic sheets, and I'm going to use the coordinating die with the Tropical Leaves set to create a mask so that I don't do the second foiling over top of my leaves. My plan here is to do two cards. I'm using Hammer Mill cardstock for one of them, and then I've got Kiwi Hero Hues cardstock for the other. I've been wanting to foil on colored cardstock lately, and I've heard that the Hero Hues cardstock works well, so I thought I would try it. So I'm taking all of the Tropical Leaves press plates and I'm arranging them on my Glimmer machine and letting them warm up a little bit while my machine warms up. I want to make sure that I have the leaves arranged so that they go a little bit off of the edge of my cardstock. And the pieces of cardstock I'm using right now are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. For my masks, I take the dies and I put them on the side of the masking magic sheets that doesn't have the backing on it. So the backing has some printing on it and the mask itself doesn't. So you can really easily tell which side is which. So I cut those out and put those aside, and then I'm going to start my foiling. My Glimmer machine is now nice and hot, so I'm going to use the Aura foil with a piece of Hammer Mill cardstock and then the plates on top. Press the timer button, and once that timer button is gone off, I can put that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine for the pressure. You need both the heat and the pressure for doing hot foiling. With that back in, I can take that off and peel that foil off, and I absolutely love how gorgeous those leaves look on that hammer mill. I'm saving that foil. I'm going to do some solid hot foiling with it, and I'm going to be using that in the cards. The second one that I'm foiling again is with Aura foil, and I'm using that Kiwi Hero Hues cardstock. Once the timer button has gone through on the Glimmer machine for that, I put it through the Platinum 6. And once again, look at how beautiful that hot foiling is. There is a little bit more over foiling on that Hero Hues Kiwi, the colored cardstock, than there is on the Hammer Mill. But still, it's the best I've done on some colored cardstock, so I was really impressed by that. So now I'm going to take those masking magic masks and I'm going to put them on top of my foiled leaves. Now, these dies have a little bit of a halo around the mask, so they're not exactly the same size as the foiling. So I have to be really careful when I'm putting those masks on there and trying to get an even halo around the whole thing. So it is possible to see through the mask, but sometimes it's not until I rub it down that I can see whether it is nice and centered or not. So you'll see sometimes I lift it up a little bit and then reapply it just to make sure that I've got a nice even edge around the whole thing. So with all of these down, then I'm going to use the Opal foil with this Buffalo Plaid background here. The idea is that the background itself is going to be foiled, but my leaves are going to be protected with the masking magic. And I've never tried this before. This is my first time trying this. It's just an idea I had, and I was curious how well it would work. So once this is all completely done, I can take that Opal foil, and the one thing with the Opal foil, it's got a little bit of transparency to it, so it's really hard to see which side is the pretty side of the foil and which side is the dull side of the foil. Both look the same, so you want to be careful when you're taking it off the roll. The inside part of the roll tends to be the dull side. So when I'm taking it off and cutting it off, I'm making sure that I'm leaving it a certain way so that I know which is the good side and which is the bad side. Now, because I have those masking magic masks over top of the leaves, I did put it through my Platinum 6 several times to make sure to get enough pressure so that I could get a good impression even with those masking magic masks. So the one thing that I noticed is the heat from the Glimmer machine did affect the masks. There is a little bit of adhesive residue on those leaves. You can't actually see it in the camera, but I can feel it when I touch the cardstock. But I thought we'd keep going with it. Now you can see with this second one that it doesn't stick quite as well. Some of that adhesive is actually transferred over onto that first white one there. And that's what I'm feeling right there. I can feel that there is some residue there. And at this point, I decided to keep going because I'm like, I don't know how it's going to affect the ink blending that I plan on doing. And this is started all as an experiment to see if it was possible. So I figured we might as well keep going. I didn't have as much of an issue with the adhesive transferring on this green one, and that's possibly because it had already transferred to the white one. And originally those masks didn't stick quite as well, but after going through the machine, they stuck down quite fine. And I wanted to keep them there to do my ink blending and then take them off. So now I'm doing the solid hot foiling. I'm going to do all of the foils that we've used here. So I'm going to do both the Aura foil as well as the Opal foil. The Aura I'm going to be using for masks around the image pieces on the card, so they're going to get used. The Opal leftovers, I'm just going to save it. It'll get used in a future project. It might be cut out to use as sentiments, or it might be something else. It has a really interesting background. It's not obviously overall background because of the fact that I had the masks on there from the leaves. So it's definitely not an overall plaid, but I think it could look cool as kind of a grungy, different kind of background. So I am going to keep that. I'm going to hot foil it here, and I'm going to keep those with my extra pieces and use them for future projects. But it's much easier to keep cardstock that's been foiled than these foiling sheets, and especially with the Opal, because it's hard to tell which side is which. I want to make sure that I do it before I put them aside and mix up which side should be foiled and which side shouldn't. But it does create a really cool background when you look at it after it's been foiled. You can see the buffalo plaid on there, but then there's also some areas that aren't as crisp because of those leaves. So after those were foiled, I loved the, there's one leaf, it's almost like a eucalyptus or whatever. I loved it so much when it was foiled on the hammer mill that I decided to create a third card. And I'm going to foil that image with that Aura foil in the center of the hammer mill cardstock for that third card. I have a sentiment set here. This one is called Sentiments of Wonder. And I had a little piece of foil left over from cutting the piece for those leaves. So I wanted to use it right away and make sure that it didn't go to waste. So I'm using a few of those sentiments from that set to use on my cards as well. So once my Glimmer machine was hot and the timer button had gone off, put it through that platinum machine, and there we go. I absolutely love the detail that you get when you do hot foiling with press plates. I think it's even better than Glimmer plates. It just seems so much more detailed. So while my machine is hot, I'm going to solid hot foil those leaves one last time. I have that other half of cardstock that I didn't use for my sentiments, so I might as well use it up as well as using that foil, because I'm going to do that negative hot foil. I'm going to die cut it and use it on that third card. This here is my favorite leaf from those tropical leaves. I don't really know why, but I absolutely love it. So with that hot foiling done, I put my machine away. I took out the coordinating dies to go with the sentiments as well as that leaf there and die cut it to have that on hand for when I needed to use it. I absolutely love sets when they have coordinating dies. It just makes it so much easier to cut out. I mean, a lot of these could be cut by hand, but there's something much more finished looking when you use a die set, and I absolutely love it. So now I'm going to do my ink blending on these backgrounds. So I did cut a second set of masks just so that I wouldn't have to peel one off to use it on the other card again. So on that white piece is the second set of masks. On the green piece is the one that I foiled right over. I'm using several distress inks for ink blending my background. You don't necessarily even have to ink blend this background, but I just wanted that pattern to show off just a tiny little bit more. So this one here I'm using is Tumbled Glass, and I'm trying to have a very light hand with it. And it's just to bring that foiling, the image out a little bit, as well as give a little bit of contrast to the leaves. So the white part that you're seeing from what I've ink blended there is the foil. The blue part is the cardstock that's exposed. So I'm using the same color on the green background here. I'm starting with the tumbled glass, and then I'm going to go and I'm using Uncharted Mariner around the leaves just to give a little bit more dimension, just make it a little bit darker. I didn't want to use the Uncharted Mariner on the white background because I didn't want my background to be too much or too dark. I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle, but because the green is darker, I figured it could handle a little bit darker color. And I really love how that Buffalo Plaid background, it almost takes the look on that white of gingham. It looks like a gingham tablecloth almost. So after I'm done this ink blending, I can take those masks off, and then I have some peeled paint distress ink, and I'm going to ink blend on the center of those leaves. Now this set of masks here is the one that was used on the white originally and then didn't really stick to the green, and then went through, or I hot foiled it twice basically. So on that green, it actually did come off really quite easily, and it didn't leave any adhesive residue. This second piece here, these ones here are the second mats that I did. So I can still feel the adhesive residue that got transferred over with the hot foiling, but it does something really cool when I go to ink blend with it. So that's coming up in just a second. And it's something that I didn't really expect to happen, but I actually really quite like it. So this particular leaf here, you have to be a little bit more careful when taking it off because it has all of those jagged edges out. And often these masks, any indent in, it likes to tear a little bit. So if you want to use these masks again, and I typically will use most of the masks again, I won't use the ones that I hot foiled with, but the other ones, the second set that I created, I will use that again. I just save them, put them in a Ziploc bag with that press plate set. Might as well just keep them because they're already done. And if I'm ever going to use them again, it's when I'm using this set. So by placing them or storing them with the set, I know that's where I'll be able to find them. So now I'm going to use the negative part of my masks. And this is mainly so that when I do my ink blending on these leaves, I don't get any of the ink on the background. Now on this green background, the green from the leaves probably wouldn't make much difference if I got it over the edge, but I just wanted to have a mask there because I'd already had the positive part of the mask. I might as well use up the negative part. And I wanted to be able to ensure that I wasn't going to accidentally blend beyond the outermost part of the leaf. I'm only doing my ink blending in the center because this particular cardstock, the green cardstock, is already green. I thought that I would use that to my advantage and just make a darker center for the leaves and get some dimension that way. I absolutely love the way the leaves looked, and seeing the natural color of the cardstock with the inked part of the center, I think it adds a lot of dimension to that background there. So you can see when I did that Buffalo Plaid background on here, I didn't get as clean of a foiling as I did on the white. And part of the reason for that is on the white, I went a lot slower when I put it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. And I also went back and forth a couple times. I forgot to do that when I was doing the green, and I didn't really realize that I didn't do that until I peeled the foiling off, and then I looked back at the video and realized that I had only put it back and forth and I did it at my regular speed. So if you want a cleaner foiling, I would suggest to go back and forth several times and do it a little bit slower, just giving that a good chance to make some good contact with the background cardstock. So for this particular one here, I'm using a detailed ink blending brush. It's much easier to use for the smaller leaves than the big brush. The big one's totally fine, but for this one, it really needs a smaller brush. And just like the green background, I'm not going all the way to the edges. I'm leaving some white there. I could have done just a lighter green and then gone darker, but I actually really liked the white edge to it. It's a little bit different. It's not very natural compared to real living leaves, but I liked it looked cool to me. I liked it, so I decided to go with it. So I'm doing the same method for ink blending as I did on the green one. I'm just doing the center of the leaf, putting that mask on, ink blending the center of the leaf, and then I can take that mask off. And you can see, especially with the bigger leaves, you don't see it as much with the smaller ones, that you start to see the plaid from the background because of the adhesive residue that is on that cardstock. The adhesive residue actually is masking the ink. So the ink color that you're seeing is the ink on the background on the paper, and the adhesive is actually giving a little bit of a mask, so you get that buffalo plaid on those leaves. Now, the easier way to do that without masking would be just to do that buffalo plaid background over the entire thing, but then you would also have the shine from that aerofoil, and because this is adhesive that's doing that masking, you get a contrast in texture. You don't get that shine, you just get that mask. So I really like the way that it looked, and I think it wouldn't look quite the same if I had the shine from that aerofoil over the whole thing. It would look a little bit, it would look okay. It would have a similar look for color, but I like the difference in texture that you don't have the shine from that foiling. So with all of those pieces ready, I just trimmed down my image piece to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And then those masks that were created with the negative foil, those are cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4. For my second card here with the green background, because I had only foiled 2 sentiments, I had one that I had previously done in a previous video. This one is done with the Curved Everyday sentiment set. So it's done with the aerofoil as well, so the foil color matches perfectly. And it's going to give it's going to show up a lot better on that background because that background is darker. The sentiment strip is white. It's just going to show a lot better on the green background. I'm gluing everything together with some Barely Art glue in a fine tip bottle, and then I'm putting a large acrylic block over top of it to hold it flat while it dries. I like doing it because it just keeps my hands free and I don't have to worry about holding it myself. For that third card here with that single leaf on it, that gold cardstock is actually Inca Gold cardstock. It's made by Tonic, and it's a gold cardstock that has a holographic shine on it, so it matches perfectly with the foil that was used to do the hot foiling. So I have my image piece down there that I glued, and then I'm going to glue that negative leaf die cut, and then I'm gluing down my sentiment. I really love that simplicity of that third card, and the only thing I think I would change is I would put that original leaf, I would foil it a little bit higher so that there was a little bit more room below the leaves and the sentiment, but I actually really, really love it. So here are the finished cards. This is the one that's done on the white hammer mill cardstock. This is where the masking magic transferred some of the adhesive to that background so that resisted when I did my ink blending. The second one is done with that Kiwi Hero Hues cardstock, and I love how well it foiled. And then the third one here is just the simple, I think it's a eucalyptus leaf, double or foiled and negative foiled, and then die cut and added it as an embellishment. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. I hope you have a fantastic day.